Tonight, we travel back to a time of immense beauty and quiet contemplation, 10th century Heian Japan. But we are leaving behind the shimmering silks, intricate court ceremonies, and the famous tales of romance and intrigue you might have read about. The world of a court noble was a universe away from the life of an artisan. Tonight, we explore that other world. A world measured not in political alliances or whispered gossip, but in the slow curl of scented smoke and the passing of the seasons. We are going to discover the profound reality that for most people, life was a simple, difficult, and beautiful rhythm of dedicated work. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. It lets me know that you find some peace in these stories and helps ensure we can keep making them. And for our community question tonight, I'd love to know, what is a scent that instantly takes you back to a specific memory? It could be the smell of rain on hot pavement, a certain flower, or a spice from a family recipe. Let me know in the comments. For now, though, it's time to let all of that go. Find a comfortable position, lying on your back or on your side. Let your hands rest where they feel most natural. Take a slow, gentle breath in, and as you exhale, release the tension you've been holding in your shoulders and your jaw. Allow your body to feel heavy and supported. Let the sounds of your room fade into the background, becoming distant and unimportant. With your next breath, I want you to feel the air bringing a sense of calm, and as you breathe out, you can let go of the day's worries. You don't need them anymore. Your only task now is to be present, to listen, and to sink deeper into the stillness. The world outside can wait. The world has fallen away. You are Kaito, an old master of the Way of Incense, and your day has already begun. You've woken up long before the sun. There was no alarm, no jarring noise, only an internal clock honed by decades of this same ritual. The world outside the thin paper walls of your home is a deep, quiet gray, a color that holds the last vestiges of night and the first promise of dawn. You feel the coolness of the air on your skin, a familiar companion in this house without modern heating. The floorboards, made of dark, polished wood, are smooth and cold beneath your bare feet as you move through the sleeping house. Your movements are slow, deliberate, a choreography practiced so many times it has become a part of you, as natural as breathing. You slide open the shoji screen that leads into your workshop. The wood of the frame is worn, almost satiny, shaped not by a craftsman's tool, but by the pressure of your own palm, opening and closing it thousands of times. The screen doesn't rattle or scrape, it makes a soft, whispering sound, as the paper slides across the grooved track. This is the first sound of your workday, a sound of gentle beginning. Through the translucent washi paper, the world outside is a mere suggestion of shapes, the dark hunch of an ancient pine tree, the low silhouette of a stone lantern in your garden. The air that greets you is the first true sensation of the morning. It isn't just cold. It's a complex perfume, an invisible welcome. You can smell the damp, rich earth of your moss garden, a scent of deep, patient life that has been sweetened by the cool night. Woven through it is the faintest lingering ghost of yesterday's work, a warm, woody note of sandalwood that has clung to the air in the still room. You take a slow breath, drawing it all in. This is how you know where you are. This is the scent of home, of purpose, of another day granted to you. Your workshop is a sanctuary of order. To a visitor it might seem sparse, but to you it is full. This room is the pavilion of whispering woods, your life's work contained within its walls. You move with the unhurried grace of old age, your body a map of familiar acres that you acknowledge without complaint. Your first task is always the same: to bring fire into the room. Not a roaring flame to chase away the chill, but a single, controlled point of heat, the heart of your craft. You kneel on a woven tatami mat before a low wooden table. Upon it rests a ceramic censer, its glaze the color of a winter sky. Beside it is a small box containing charcoal briquettes. Not the kind used for cooking, but a special, nearly smokeless white charcoal called sumi. Using a pair of delicate iron tongs, you select a single, perfectly formed briquette, no larger than your thumb. You place it carefully in the center of the censer, which is filled with fine, compacted white ash. You don't use a match or a lighter. Instead, you strike a small piece of flint against steel, letting a spark fall onto a piece of prepared tinder. It catches, a tiny orange glow that you gently blow into a small, hesitant flame. You use this flame to light a sliver of cedar, and with that fragrant splint, you touch the charcoal. Now comes the part that a modern mind would find unbearable, the waiting. You do not rush the fire. You sit perfectly still, watching. For many long minutes, nothing seems to happen. Then, slowly, a faint red blush begins to creep across the surface of the briquette. You fan it with a small, elegant paper fan, not with vigor, but with a slow, rhythmic wave. Your breath is steady. Your mind is quiet. You are not waiting for the charcoal to be ready for you. You are attending to it, helping it awaken. The process is a meditation. It teaches you that some things cannot be forced. Heat, like inspiration, must be coaxed. Finally, the ember is born. It is no longer black, but a soft, uniform gray, radiating a silent, steady heat that you can feel on the back of your hands. It glows from within, a tiny sun in the cool, gray room. This single ember will be the engine for your entire day's work. With the heart of your workshop now beating, you turn your attention to your library of scents. This is the soul of the pavilion of whispering woods. Along one wall are shelves lined with cedar boxes of various sizes. They are not labeled with printed words, but with single, elegant characters brushed onto small tags of paper, each one a name, a place of origin, a spirit. You run your hand over the lid of one. The wood is smooth and cool, and the box gives off its own clean, camphorous scent, a guardian protecting what lies within. You slide the lid from the box. Inside, resting on a bed of raw silk, are several logs of wood. This is not ordinary wood. It is dark, almost black in places, its surface gnarled and resinous. This is aloeswood, or jinki, the most prized aromatic substance in the world. Some of these pieces are older than you are. They are the result of a sickness, a battle within a tree in a faraway jungle, where resin formed over decades to heal a wound, creating this dense, fragrant treasure. You know that its scent is not released by fire, but by gentle warmth. When heated, it will not smell of burning wood, but of something far more complex: deep earth, sweet honey, and a quiet bitterness that speaks of its long, slow creation. To you, its value is not in money, though it is worth more than gold, but in time. This is time itself, solidified. Your gaze moves along the shelves. You see the porcelain jars, each stoppered with a carved wooden plug. You don't need to read the labels. You know them by their shape, their feel, their place on the shelf. You reach for one, a small, celadon, green jar. You pull the stopper and lift it to your nose. The scent is immediate and powerful, the warm, sweet, and spicy perfume of powdered cloves. You breathe it in, and you can almost feel the sun of a distant southern island. You replace the stopper and pick up another, a dark brown ceramic pot. This one holds spikenard, an earthy, musky fragrance that smells of mountains and roots deep in the soil. Another jar contains camphor, its scent clean, sharp, and medicinal, a fragrance that clears the mind and cools the senses. Each jar, each box, is a note in a complex symphony that only you can compose. You are not a merchant selling spices, you are a poet choosing words. Your master taught you that a scent is not a single thing. It is a key. The right combination of fragrances doesn't just create a pleasant smell. It unlocks a feeling, a memory, a state of mind. It can evoke the quiet joy of a spring morning or the solemn peace of a temple at twilight. This is the Way of Incense, the Kōdō. It is an art of immense subtlety, a path of patience and deep listening. Your quiet contemplation is interrupted by a soft sound from the entrance to your home. It is Hana, your young apprentice. She does not speak, but you hear the gentle sweep of the broom as she begins her daily task of tending to the garden. You know that soon she will bring you a cup of freshly prepared tea. Her silent, dedicated presence is a comfort, a reminder that the traditions you hold so dear will not simply vanish when you are gone. She is learning not through words, but through observation, through the same quiet rhythm that governs your own life. Just as the thought forms, a different sound breaks the morning's peace. It is the sound of a gate opening and the soft crunch of footsteps on the gravel path. This is unusual. Visitors are rare, especially this early. You remain kneeling, your posture unchanged, as you wait. A few moments later, a figure appears at the open shoji screen of your workshop, silhouetted against the growing dawn. It is a messenger, dressed in the simple robes of a monastic attendant. He bows deeply, his forehead nearly touching the ground. You incline your head in return. Words are unnecessary. He understands he is in a place of quiet work. The messenger steps forward and places a long, slender object on the floor before you, wrapped in a simple cloth. He bows again, and with the same quiet footsteps he is gone. You are left alone with the object. It is a scroll. You can tell by its shape and feel. The silence returns to your workshop, but now it is filled with a new energy, a sense of anticipation. A new task has arrived. You reach for the scroll and slowly unwrap the cloth. It is tied with a simple purple cord. The scroll itself is made of fine washi paper, smooth and slightly crisp to the touch. You carefully untie the cord and lay the scroll on the low table before you. With a gentle touch, you unroll it. The sound of the paper unfurling is the loudest thing in the room, a dry, rustling sound that seems to speak of importance. The scroll is filled with beautiful, flowing calligraphy, each character a work of art. It is a formal request, a commission, from a remote mountain temple, a place you have heard of but never seen. You read the elegant lines, your eyes tracing the path of the brush. The monks are preparing for the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year. It is a time for deep introspection, for looking inward as the world outside sleeps under a blanket of cold. They are asking for an incense blend, but they do not ask for a festive or winter scent. The request is far more poetic, far more challenging. They ask for a fragrance that embodies the sound of snow falling on cedar. They want a scent that captures the profound silence of a winter forest, the cold, clean air, and the quiet resilience of life that waits for the sun's return. They want an incense that is not a perfume, but a prayer. You roll the scroll back up, your movements slow and thoughtful. You hold it in your hands, feeling its slight weight. The journey of sense you are about to begin is now clear. This is not a simple task of mixing powders. This is a task of translation. How do you translate the feeling of cold, the image of snow, the spirit of cedar into a fragrance? How do you capture silence in a wisp of smoke? Your gaze drifts from the scroll back to the single glowing ember in your censer. It burns with a steady, patient heat, asking for nothing. It simply is. You realize the answer will not be found in a quick decision. It will be found where all of your answers are found in the quiet rhythm of the work itself. In the slow grinding of the woods, in the careful measuring of the resins, in the patient observation of the world, just outside your paper walls. The temple has asked you for the scent of silence. And you know that to create it, you must first find it within yourself. The day's work has truly begun. The weight of the commission from the mountain temple still rests in your mind, a quiet and heavy stone. The fine washy paper of the scroll, with its elegant, flowing characters, asked not merely for an incense, but for a feeling captured in fragrant smoke, a scent to mark the deepest stillness of the year, the winter solstice. The request echoes in the silent space of your workshop, a room already saturated with the ghosts of 1,000 other blends. But you know with a certainty that runs deeper than thought, that the answer to this new poem of scent does not lie within these walls, among the jars of powders and the dark, sleeping logs of aloeswood. The first words are always spoken outside. And so, you leave the scroll resting on your work table and slide open the paper screen that separates your world of craft from the world of nature. Before you can create, you must listen. You step out onto the narrow veranda, the polished wood cool beneath the thin soles of your straw sandals. The air that greets you is a physical presence, a crisp, clean shock after the dense, woody perfume of the workshop. It smells of late autumn, a fragrance as complex and layered as any you could ever hope to blend. It carries the sharp scent of cold stone from the garden path, the deep, rich aroma of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the faint, high note of pine from the trees that guard the perimeter of your small domain. The sun, already low in the afternoon sky, casts long, gentle shadows that stretch like grasping fingers across the ground, and the light itself has a thin, golden quality, as if it too is preparing for the long sleep of winter. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the very essence of the season fill your lungs. To a visitor from the bustling capital, this garden might seem to be in a state of quiet decay. They would see the bare branches of the cherry tree, the browning ferns, the scattered carpet of fallen leaves. You, however, see a world that is not dying, but preparing. It is shedding its finery, letting go of the unnecessary, and settling into its most honest and essential self. This, you think, is the perfect state of mind in which to begin. Your gaze drifts across the garden, settling on the small, focused figure of Hana. She is near the ancient stone lantern, its moss-covered surface a tapestry of greens and greys. She holds a simple bamboo broom, and with movements as careful and deliberate as a calligrapher's brushstrokes, she is sweeping fallen maple leaves from the thick carpet of moss. You watch her, unseen, unheard. She does not scrape or rush. Each stroke is a soft whisper of bamboo on moss, a gesture of care. She gathers the leaves, brilliant bursts of crimson and gold against the deep emerald, into a shallow woven basket by her side. There is a profound silence in her work, a complete absorption that you recognize as the first and most vital element of any true art. She does not fight against the falling leaves, she works with them, respecting the cycle of the seasons, tidying the present moment to honor both what has passed and what is to come. In her quiet diligence, you see the reflection of your own craft. She tends to the living heart of this place, nurturing the elements that will one day become the memories you seek to capture. She is the keeper of the garden's body. You are the interpreter of its soul. You have exchanged perhaps fewer than 100 words with her in the years she has been here, but you understand each other perfectly. The teaching happens not in speech, but in this shared reverence for the quiet, rhythmic work of existence. She looks up for a moment, not at you, but at the sky, her expression unreadable, and then returns to her task, her focus absolute. Seeing this continuity, this passing of a silent philosophy from one generation to the next, centers you. Your own path feels clearer. Leaving the veranda, you step onto the narrow, winding path of flat, grey stones that meanders through the garden. The stones are cool and slightly damp, and you can feel their solid reality through your sandals, grounding you. Your walk is slow, a moving meditation. Your purpose is not to travel from one point to another, but to observe, to be fully present with each step. The garden is your library, and every plant, every stone, every patch of moss is a page filled with silent poetry. You pass beneath the skeletal branches of the maple tree Hana has just tended to. A few stubborn leaves still cling to its branches, their red so deep and vibrant, it seems to almost burn against the pale blue of the sky. You know that their color is not a sign of strength, but the final, beautiful expression of letting go. This is a vital lesson. The most powerful scents you have learned are often those that come from resins and woods that have experienced a kind of wounding or decay, a transformation born of hardship. Beauty is so often a chronicle of surrender. Your eyes scan the moss floor, a miniature, rolling landscape of countless shades of green. It is the heart of your garden, flourishing in the damp shade and cool air. You kneel, the rough fabric of your robes brushing against the damp earth. The physical act of lowering yourself, of bringing your perspective down to the level of the smallest things, is essential. From here, you can see the intricate world you would miss while standing. You see the tiny water droplets clinging to the tips of the moss, each one a perfect, shimmering jewel holding a distorted reflection of the sky. You see a beetle, its shell as black and polished as lacquer, making its slow journey through the green forest. You press your fingers gently into the moss. It is soft, cool and resilient, springing back as you lift your hand. The smell here is concentrated, primeval. It is the smell of patience, of time measured not in days, but in centuries. The temple's request is for a winter scent, one of profound stillness. This moss, you realize, holds the key to that stillness. It does not strive, it simply is. It endures the heat of summer and the frost of winter with the same quiet grace. Perhaps, you think, a touch of ground oak moss, not for its scent, which is subtle, but for its spirit, for the feeling of deep, ancient calm it imparts. You remain kneeling, your gaze tracing the patterns on the ground until it stops. There, tucked beside the weathered base of a grey stone, is a small cluster of flowers you had almost forgotten. Rutan. The gentian blossoms are a shock of deep, impossible blue, a color so pure and vivid it feels as if a piece of the twilight sky has fallen to the earth. They are the garden's last whisper of vibrant color before the world is bleached by frost. You reach out, not to pick one, but to gently touch a petal with the tip of your finger. It feels cool and impossibly delicate, like the finest silk. These flowers are not grand or fragrant, but their quiet defiance is a powerful statement. They choose to bloom now, on the cusp of winter, when all else is fading. They speak of a hope that is not loud or boastful, but small, deep, and resilient. In your mind, you give this feeling a name: winter courage. It is another word, another note for the poem you are composing. The monks at the temple live a secluded, difficult life of discipline. They would understand the language of this small, tenacious flower. Your search continues. The ingredients for kadi come from two worlds, the exotic and the near. The aloeswood, the sandalwood, the cloves. They are travelers from distant, sun-scorched lands, carrying stories of foreign soils and faraway seas. But to give those grand stories a sense of place, a soul, they must be grounded in the familiar, in the spirit of the here and now. You rise slowly, your old joints protesting with a faint ache, and make your way to a low, growing osmanthus bush near the simple bamboo fence. Its main flowering season has passed. Weeks ago, this bush would have filled the entire garden with its heady, intoxicating perfume, a scent like apricots and jasmine and warm sunlight all at once. Now it is quiet. Most of the tiny, pale orange blossoms have fallen. Yet, you see a few small clusters still clinging stubbornly to the branches, dried by the sun and the crisp air. You cup your hand beneath a branch and gently brush them with your fingers. A dozen of the tiny, papery flowers fall into your palm. They are light as dust. You lift your hand to your nose and inhale. The powerful fragrance is gone, replaced by a delicate, ghost-like scent. It is a whisper of the flower's former glory, a sweet, fragile memory of warmer months and longer days. This, you think, is perfect. The winter solstice incense must not be without warmth, but it cannot be the boisterous warmth of summer. It must be an inner warmth, a memory of light held close in the heart of darkness. This dried osmanthus is the scent of a happy memory, a flicker of candlelight in a dark room. You carefully fold the blossoms into a small piece of paper you keep tucked in your sleeve. From the memory of the past, you turn to the promise of the future. You walk to the edge of the garden, to the tall, steadfast pine tree that stands like a silent guardian. The pine, unlike the maple and the cherry, does not surrender to the season. Its deep green is a constant, a symbol of endurance and longevity. Its needles are sharp, clean, and full of a vital, resinous life. You reach up to a low, hanging branch. The needles brushing against the back of your hand, their invigorating sharpness a stark contrast to the soft moss and the delicate flowers. You carefully pluck a small clutch of needles, feeling the faint stickiness of their resin on your fingertips. You bring them close and breathe in. The scent is powerful, clean, and clarifying. It cuts through the damp, earthy smells of the garden, clearing your head. It is the smell of winter itself, of crisp morning air, of the unyielding forest, of life that does not just survive the cold, but thrives in it. Where the osmanthus was a memory of the sun, the pine is an assertion of life in its absence. It speaks of strength, clarity, and perseverance. It is the spine, the central pillar around which the softer, warmer memories can gather. You place the pine needles alongside the osmanthus, the past and the future resting together in the small paper packet. With these few humble treasures secured, you stand and look back across your small kingdom. The sun has fallen lower still, and the shadows have deepened, blurring the edges of the stones and shrubs. Hana has finished her work and is gone. The garden returned to its perfect, solitary state. The path back to your workshop seems to glow faintly in the fading light. You hold the packet in your hand, feeling the slight weight of the needles, the near weightlessness of the blossoms. You now have the beginning of your answer for the temple. The incense will be built upon a base of the finest aloeswood, its scent deep, ancient and grounding, like the dark earth itself. Upon that foundation, you will layer the other elements. The frankincense and myrrh for sanctity, the clove for a fiery, inner warmth, the spikenard for a touch of mountain wildness. But it is the things you have gathered today that will give it a soul unique to this time and this place. The faint memory, scent of osmanthus, will speak of the light that has been. The sharp, clarifying scent of the pine will speak of the strength needed to endure what is to come. And the spirit of the deep blue gentian, the moss, and the falling leaves will infuse the whole with a feeling of profound, beautiful, and courageous stillness. You realize, as you stand here in the cold, crisp air, that your work is not so different from that of a poet. A poet takes common words, light, dark, flower, stone, and arranges them in such a way that they create a feeling, an experience far greater than the sum of their parts. You do the same, but your words are scents. Each ingredient is a word, and today, in your quiet garden, you have been listening, not thinking. You have allowed the world to tell you which words are needed for this specific poem. The language of the autumn garden is one of subtlety, of transition, of letting go with grace to reveal an essential truth. As you turn and walk back toward the warm, waiting silence of your workshop, you do not feel the chill in the air. You feel only the quiet satisfaction of having understood. The conversation is over. The listening is done. Now the slow, meditative work of translation can begin. The crisp memory of the autumn garden still clings to you, a feeling more than a scent. The image of Hana, your silent apprentice, sweeping the vibrant red and gold maple leaves into a basket feels as though it happened only a moment ago. Her movements, so deliberate and mindful, were a conversation with the season itself, a lesson in quiet acceptance. You walked that path not just as an observer, but as a student gathering the sharp, clean promise of pine and the ghostly sweetness of dried osmanthus. You listened to the language of the garden as it prepared for its long winter sleep, and you have carried its poetry back inside with you. Now, sitting on the cool tatami mat of your workshop, you slide the paper shoji screen almost closed, leaving just a sliver of the gray afternoon light. The world outside, with its rustling leaves and distant bird calls, fades to a murmur. Before you lies the low, dark grinding table, and you know that the time for listening is over. The time for transformation, the slow and meditative heart of your craft, has arrived. The interior of your workshop, the pavilion of whispering woods, is a testament to a life spent in pursuit of scent. It is not a place of clutter, but of curated quiet. Everything has its purpose, its history. The grinding table before you is a perfect example. It is a thick slab of kiyoki wood, its grain worn smooth and dark with age, and the oils of countless fragrant materials. There are no carvings, no vanities in its design. It is a tool, a humble altar, its surface a map of faint scratches and stains left by your master, and now by you. Upon it rests the primary instrument of your work, the yijin. It is not the deep, heavy stone mortar you might imagine from a modern kitchen. Instead, it is a shallow, boat-shaped vessel made of unglazed ceramic, its rough texture essential for the task ahead. Its unique shape is a piece of ancient knowledge, designed not for pounding or crushing, but for the gentle, patient act of abrasion. Beside it lies its partner, a small wheeled pestle, also ceramic, its handle worn to a perfect, comfortable smoothness in the cup of your palm. But your attention is focused on the object lying in the center of the table. To a stranger, it would be utterly unremarkable. A gnarled, darkish piece of wood, no larger than your two thumbs placed together. It looks like something you might find washed up on a riverbank, dried and forgotten. You, however, know its true nature. You are looking at a piece of Kyara, the highest grade of aloeswood, a substance so rare and prized that, gram for gram, its value far exceeds that of gold. Before the work can begin, there must be a moment of acquaintance. You do not rush. Rushing is the enemy of this art. It is a violence against the material's soul. You reach out and pick up the small piece of Kyara. The first surprise is its weight. It feels far heavier in your palm than a simple piece of wood has any right to be, a density that speaks to the precious, dark resin that has saturated its every fiber over centuries. You turn it over and over, your thumb tracing the contours of its surface. It is cool to the touch, with an almost waxy texture. This is ginkgo, the sinking wood, so named because its incredible resin content would cause it to sink in water. You understand that this resin is not a natural part of the tree, but a miraculous scar. It is the tree's response to a deep wound, an infection or a lightning strike from ages past. Over hundreds of years, the tree fought this injury, slowly, patiently, pushing out this dark, fragrant resin to heal itself. You are holding a story of ancient struggle, a testament to endurance and transformation. You lift the wood to your nose and inhale. Unheated, its scent is profoundly subtle, almost shy. You must search for it. There is a note of deep, damp earth, the smell of a forest floor after a long rain. Beneath that, a quiet sweetness, and a surprising, almost bitter hint of something medicinal and clean. Your modern mind, so accustomed to loud, overpowering fragrances, has to recalibrate, to learn to listen to this whisper. In this moment of quiet communion, you are not a craftsman preparing a material, you are a student asking permission, seeking to understand the story this ancient wood has to tell before you ask it to speak in a new voice. With a soft reverence, you place the piece of Kyara into the shallow channel of the Yijin. The small clink of wood against ceramic is the only sound in the room, a signal that the ritual is commencing. Your hand closes around the wooden handle of the pestle, a grip refined by tens of thousands of repetitions until it has become an extension of your body. Your shoulders relax, your breathing deepens. And then you begin. The motion is not a stirring, nor is it a pounding. It is a slow, steady, back and forth scraping. You press down with a gentle but firm pressure, rolling the small ceramic wheel over the wood, abrading it, patiently coaxing it to surrender its form. The sound fills the silence. It is a soft, rhythmic whisper.
Shoo, shoo, shoo.
A sound like sand falling in an hourglass, or the hushed sharing of a secret. In the frantic, noisy world you came from, this sound would be completely lost, drowned out by the hum of machines and the clamor of voices. But here, in the stillness of your workshop, it is everything. It is the room's only heartbeat. It is the sound of a solid thing becoming ephemeral. It is the sound of time itself being ground into dust. As you continue the steady, repetitive motion, something magical begins to happen. The minimal friction of the ceramic wheel against the wood generates the faintest warmth, just enough to awaken the volatile oils trapped deep within the resin. The air around you begins to change. The subtle, shy scent you detected earlier starts to bloom, to unfurl like a time-lapse flower. It is impossibly complex. At first, the deep, resonant note of earth and ancient forest grows stronger, a grounding, centering aroma that seems to calm your very thoughts. Then, as more particles are released into the air, other layers reveal themselves. A current of sweetness, not sugary or floral, but something more akin to dark honey or spiced plum, weaves its way through the earthiness. Following that, a sophisticated bitterness emerges, a clean, clarifying note that reminds you of rare medicinal herbs and cools the richness of the other scents. This is why your work must be slow. You know that a modern electric grinder, with its speed and heat, would be a catastrophe. It would scorch these delicate, layered oils in an instant, burning away all the nuance and leaving behind a crude, charred caricature of the scent. Your patience is not a virtue here, it is a non-negotiable ingredient, as vital as the wood itself. Every slow, scraping pass of the pestle is an act of preservation, ensuring the full, intricate story of the Kyara is told, without a single word being lost. You close your eyes, letting your other senses take over. Your world shrinks, becoming a small, intensely focused sphere of sensation. There is only the feeling of the pestle's handle in your palm, the slight resistance as the wheel rolls over the wood, the rhythmic whisper of the abrasion, and the fragrant cloud that now envelops you. Your mind, which a moment ago was filled with thoughts of the garden and the temple's request, begins to quiet. The repetitive, meditative motion is a balm to the restless modern soul trapped within you. It pushes out the anxieties, the to-do lists, the constant internal chatter. The distinction between 1 minute and the next begins to blur. Time, as you have always understood it, a relentless, forward marching line measured by clocks and calendars, recedes. Here, time is cyclical, measured not in seconds, but in the steady rhythm of your hands and the gradual transformation of the wood. An hour might pass, or it might be 20 minutes. The concept ceases to have meaning. You are not killing time or spending time. You are simply inhabiting it, fully present in the sound, the feel, And the scent of this singular, eternal moment, the rest of the world, with all its demands and distractions, might as well not exist. There is only the task, the scent and the steady, quiet rhythm of your own being. After a long while, you open your eyes and pause, your hand resting on the pestle. You look down into the Yagen. Where once there was a solid, gnarled piece of wood, there is now a small but growing pile of fine, dark brown powder. You lean closer, observing your progress. The texture is crucial. You are aiming for a consistency as fine as silt, as soft as flour. Any grit, any coarse particles left in the mix will create imperfections in the final incense stick, causing it to sputter, burn unevenly, or even extinguish itself before its prayer is finished. This relentless pursuit of perfection is the discipline at the core of Kōdō, the Way of Incense. A discipline taught to you by your long-departed master. As you sit in the silence, you can almost hear his calm, steady voice in the echo of the grinding. The hand must be patient, Kaito, he would say, for the impatience of the hand reveals the impatience of the heart. One cannot rush a tree to grow, and one cannot rush its soul into the air. You dip your index finger into the powder. It feels impossibly soft against your skin, cool and just slightly oily from the high concentration of resin. You bring your finger to your nose and inhale. The fragrance is even more potent now, a concentrated essence of all the complexity you smelled in the air. This is the heart of the incense, the soul of the blend you are creating for the winter solstice. This precious Kyara powder is the central voice, the emperor in the composition, but it will not speak alone. Your gaze drifts from the Yagen to the row of small, lidded porcelain jars sitting neatly on a low shelf nearby. Each one is a note in the symphony you are composing. One holds the fine, pale powder of sandalwood from the distant shores of India. Its creamy, sweet woodiness will be the body of the blend, a warm and welcoming foundation. Another contains the dark, reddish dust of ground cloves, ready to add a spark of fiery, medicinal warmth to counter the deep coolness of the aloeswood. A third holds the earthy, slightly musky powder of spikenard root, which will lend a complex, grounding element, like the smell of a tangled forest floor. Each of those powders represents hours, even days, of the same meditative process you are engaged in now. You haven't just been grinding wood, you have been grinding silence. You have been grinding stillness, grinding focus, grinding memory. Each jar is a vessel not just of a plant, but of the time and patience required to release its essence. They are a library of moments, each one waiting to be combined, to tell a new story together. You return to your work, your focus absolute. The piece of Kyara grows smaller and smaller with each pass of the pestle, its physical form slowly dissolving into fragrant dust. The rhythmic scraping continues, a constant, steady prayer in the quiet room. Finally, your hand feels no more resistance. You look down. The last vestige of the solid wood is gone, completely transformed into a small, precious mound of dark, rich powder in the center of the Yagen. You stop. Your hand comes to rest on your knee. And in that moment, the silence that descends upon the workshop is of a different quality entirely. It is not an empty silence. It is a silence that is full, thick, and heavy with the soul of the aloeswood. The air itself feels weighted with history, with the perfume of a process that honors time rather than fighting it. There is no sense of exhaustion, only a deep and abiding calm. Your hands, which should be tired, feel steady and alive. Your mind, once a turbulent sea of thoughts, is now as still and clear as a mountain pond. You have done more than grind an ingredient. You have completed a ritual of transformation. The silence of the wood has been given a voice. You lean forward, close your eyes one last time, and take a long, slow breath, drawing the profound fragrance deep into your lungs. It is the scent of deep earth, of ancient forests, of quiet contemplation. It is the scent of peace. The ghost of yesterday's labor still lingers in the muscles of your hands. Even now, seated in the quiet of a new morning, you can almost feel the phantom weight of the pestle and the rhythmic, scraping whisper of precious Kyara aloeswood turning to fragrant dust. That was a meditation of reduction, of breaking something ancient and solid down into its finest essence. The air in your workshop still holds a faint, deep sweetness from the task, a scent of old forests and quiet earth. But today is different. As you slide open the paper screen, it is not the sun that greets you, but a sound, a soft, persistent percussion against the tiled roof. A steady autumn rain has descended upon your small world, blurring the edges of the moss garden into a watercolor of deep greens and grays. This is a day for joining, for binding, not for grinding. The rain seems to know this, its endless patter a perfect, soothing companion for the slow and patient alchemy to come. You let the sound wash over you for a moment, a rhythm that has measured the hours in this land for 1,000 years. It is not a violent storm, but a gentle, soaking rain, the kind that coaxes the scent from the soil and deepens the color of the stones in the garden. Each drop that lands on the curved, gray Kyara tiles of your workshop roof makes a distinct, soft tap. Multiplied by thousands, it becomes a continuous, hushing roar that seems to insulate you from the world beyond your bamboo fence. It is a sound that encourages introspection, that narrows your focus to the small, warm space of the room. The light filtering through the washi paper of the shoji is soft and diffused, a pearlescent gray that makes the dark wood of the shelves and cabinets seem even richer. You can smell the change in the air, the clean, mineral scent of petrichor as the rain meets the dry earth, a fragrance that mingles with the lingering aloeswood and the subtle, sharp notes of the ingredients awaiting you on the table. It is a perfect atmosphere for the next stage of your art, a day where the world outside provides the water and the rhythm for the work within. Your gaze falls upon the collection of porcelain jars, arranged with meticulous care on the low cypress table. Yesterday was for the woods and spices, the powders ground so fine they could be carried on a breath. Today is for the soul of the scent, the elements that provide both depth and adhesion. You reach for two specific jars, one celadon green, the other a deep earth brown. You slide the simple wooden lids off, releasing fragrances that speak of landscapes far removed from this rain-swept island. From the green jar, you carefully pour a small mound of frankincense onto a piece of clean rice paper. They are not powders, but small, irregular crystals, like tears of solidified sunlight. They range in color from milky white to a pale, translucent gold. Picking one up, you feel its surprising hardness and its light weight. It's cool to the touch, a piece of ancient desert sun captured and cooled. You bring it closer, and its scent is bright, ethereal, with notes of pine, lemon, and something otherworldly, a fragrance you've always associated with purification and prayer. You think of the scraggly, resilient trees that produce this resin, clinging to rocky hillsides under a relentless sun in distant Arabia. This small, hard jewel is the lifeblood of that tree, a wound healed into a fragrant scar. It is a scent that lifts, that seems to pull the mind upward toward the sky. Then you open the brown jar. The contents are a stark contrast. Myra, it doesn't pour in a clean mound. It consists of dark, reddish-brown clumps, some sticky to the touch, others brittle. It looks like dried blood or hardened earth. You pick up a piece, and its texture is rough, its surface dull. The aroma that rises to meet you is entirely different from the frankincense. It is deep bitter and profoundly earthy, with a medicinal, almost sorrowful weight to it. Where the frankincense was a scent of the heavens, this is a scent of the deep earth, of roots and mortality. It, too, is the hardened tear of a desert tree, a different story of survival written in resin. Its purpose in your blend is not to lift, but to ground. It provides a foundation, a gravity that keeps the other, flightier scents from simply vanishing into the air. One is a question to the gods, the other is an acceptance of the earth. To bring them into balance requires not guesswork, but absolute precision. You retrieve your hikari, a tiny scale made of dark wood and brass. Its pans, no larger than a child's thumbnail, are suspended by fine silk threads. It is a fragile-looking instrument, but you have trusted its honesty for decades. On one pan, you place a minuscule brass weight, its value etched in a character you can barely see. On the other, using a delicate pair of bamboo tweezers, you begin to add the frankincense, crystal by crystal. You watch the slender wooden arm of the scale, waiting for it to hesitate, to hover, to finally settle into a perfect, horizontal line. This is a quiet conversation between your intention and the physical weight of an object. A single crystal too many, and the balance is broken. You repeat the process with the mirror, its darker, heavier clumps requiring a different touch. As you work, the only sounds are the clicking of the tweezers, the soft rustle of resin, and the constant, meditative patter of the rain outside. You are not just weighing ingredients, you are weighing ideas. The brightness against the darkness, the ascent against the descent. You are seeking a harmony that will exist long before any flame is ever lit. With the resins measured, you turn to the most crucial element of this stage, the binder. Without it, the powders and resins would remain a disconnected collection of dust and stones. The binder is what transforms them from a group of individuals into a community. You take down a plain, unassuming wooden box. Inside is a fine, grayish-brown powder. To an unknowing eye, it looks like common dust. But you know it is the soul of the stick, the silent partner in the dance of aroma. This is tabanoku, the powdered bark of the Marcellus thunbergy tree, a type of bay laurel that grows in the forests of this very island. Its magic lies in what it does not do. When it burns, it has almost no scent of its own. It is a humble ingredient, content to provide structure without demanding attention. It creates the vessel, the physical body of the incense stick, allowing the more precious and aromatic ingredients to release their spirits without interference. Using a cheaper binder, like simple sawdust, would be an insult to the Kyara. It would be like serving a rare, exquisite tea in a dirty cup. The impurity would taint the entire experience. You measure the tabu, key powder by volume, using a small, carved bamboo scoop. Your movements as practiced and certain as a priest performing a ritual. You pour it into a wide, shallow mixing bowl, a konbachi, its dark ceramic surface worn satin smooth from generations of use. Now, for the final two elements of the bond. First, you take a small ladle and scoop water from a large clay jar you keep filled from the well in your garden. The rain is a reminder of water's power to unite and transform, and using pure, clean water feels right. You add it to the tabu powder not all at once, but spoonful by spoonful, mixing it with a simple wooden spatula. You watch as the dry, lifeless powder drinks in the moisture, darkening in color, transforming from dust into a thick, pliable paste. The scent is subtle and clean, a faint, woody smell like a damp forest floor. Next, you unseal a small ceramic pot containing honey. It is not the thin, pale liquid some city merchants sell, but a dark, viscous nectar, thick with the memory of 1,000 autumn flowers. Its aroma is rich and complex, a deep sweetness that goes far beyond mere sugar. You know the beekeeper who gathered this, an old man who lives in the hills and whose hives are surrounded by wild clover and mountain cherry trees. The honey will serve a dual purpose. It will assist the tabu bark in binding the ingredients, and its natural sugars will help the finished stick burn with a slow, steady, and consistent heat. More than that, it will add a subtle, almost imperceptible thread of warmth to the final fragrance, softening the bitter edge of the myrrh and complementing the deep sweetness of the aloeswood. You add only a single, carefully measured spoonful to your paste, stirring it in until the dark gold of the honey has completely dissolved into the grey-brown of the bark. Your binding agent is now complete, a humble but essential trinity of bark, water, and honey. Now, the final assembly. Into the large kanbachi containing the binding paste, you add all the dry ingredients you have so painstakingly prepared. First, the treasure from yesterday's work, the fine, impossibly fragrant dust of the Kyara aloeswood. You pour it from its paper wrapping, and a cloud of deep, sweet perfume rises to meet you. Then come the other powdered spices, the warm, piercing scent of clove, the earthy musk of spikenard, the cool clarity of camphor. Finally, you add the meticulously weighed resins, the pale crystals of frankincense, and the dark chips of myrrh. For a moment, they all lie there in the bowl, a stratified landscape of colors and textures, a community of scents waiting to be born. You could continue with the spatula, but this final stage demands a more intimate connection. You roll up the sleeves of your simple robe, take a deep, cleansing breath, and plunge your hands directly into the bowl. The initial sensation is one of dissonance. Your fingers feel the sooky fineness of the aloeswood powder, the slight graininess of the clove, the sharp, hard edges of the resin crystals, and the cool, wet stickiness of the taboo paste all at once. It is a chaotic mixture of disparate elements. Your work now is to bring them into union. You begin to knead, not with force, but with a slow, rhythmic patience. You fold the mixture over on itself, press down with the heels of your palms, and turn the bowl slightly. Fold, press, turn. Fold, press, turn. It is a rhythm that matches the steady drumming of the rain on the roof. Slowly, a transformation begins. The warmth from your hands starts to soften the resins and the honey. The hard little crystals of frankincense and myrrh begin to break down further under the pressure, releasing their oils and pungent aromas. The wet paste begins to evenly capture and coat every single particle of dry powder. The initial stickiness gives way to a growing cohesion. The color of the mixture changes, the various browns, grays, and pale golds bleed into one another, gradually becoming a single, uniform, deep brown hue. But the most profound change is the scent. It is no longer a collection of individual fragrances occupying the same space. It is evolving into a single, complex perfume. Notes rise and fall as you work. For a moment, the bright citrus of the frankincense is at the forefront. Then it recedes, and the deep, bitter note of myrrh asserts itself, only to be softened by the incomparable sweetness of the Kyara. The clove adds a thread of warmth, the camphor a touch of cool air. You close your eyes, focusing entirely on your hands and your nose. You are not merely mixing ingredients. You are conducting an orchestra of aromas, encouraging them to find their harmony. This is a dialogue without words. Your hands learn the feel of the dough, sensing when it is too dry or too wet. They feel the resistance lessen as the mass becomes more uniform. The process cannot be rushed. To do so would leave dry pockets or clumps of resin, imperfections that would cause the final stick to burn unevenly or, worse, to extinguish itself. It would be a failure of patience, and therefore a failure of spirit. The rain continues its steady rhythm, a tireless metronome for your work. Your shoulders begin to ache, but you barely notice. Time seems to stretch and dissolve, just as it did at the grinding table. Your entire world has become this bowl, the pressure of your hands, and the blossoming universe of scent that fills the small room. You think about the rain falling on the garden outside, how it binds the soil and the moss and the fallen leaves, nourishing them all. In here, your hands are the rain, bringing together wood from a jungle, resin from a desert, bark from a forest, and a flower's nectar into a single, unified purpose. Finally, after what feels like an age, you know the work is done. The dough no longer clings to your fingers. It is smooth, pliant, and has a texture like cool, dense clay. It has a slight, satiny sheen from the released oils. You gather the entire mass up into a single, perfect sphere. It feels heavy, dense with potential. You lift it from the bowl and hold it in your cupped hands. The scent that rises from it now is complete. It is the perfect balance you envisioned. The deep, contemplative soul of the aloeswood forms the base. The frankincense and camphor lift the spirit. The myrrh and clove provide a grounding warmth, and the thread of honey ties it all together with a hint of sweetness. It smells of the coming solstice, of cold air and warm fires, of deep earth and clear stars. You place the dark ball of incense paste back into the bowl and cover it with a damp cloth, leaving it to rest and allow the scents to fully marry. Wiping the fragrant residue from your hands, you look out through the open screen at the rain-soaked garden. The world outside is a symphony of grey and green, washed clean and utterly at peace. The powders and resins, gathered from all corners of the world, are gone. In their place is this new creation, a silent promise of a fragrance yet to be released. The binding is complete, and the rain, your quiet companion, continues to fall. The last of the autumn rain has passed, leaving the world outside your workshop washed clean and silent. The patter on the roof, your steady companion through the long afternoon of kneading and binding, has ceased, replaced by the soft, rhythmic dripping of water from the eaves onto the mossy stones below. Before you, in a worn wooden bowl, rests the result of that work, a single, cohesive mass of dark, fragrant paste. It is the color of damp earth after a storm, a deep, resonant brown-black, rich with the captured scents of Kyara wood, frankincense tears, and the faintest memory of honey. Your fingers, still slightly sticky from the tabu. No key bark that binds it all together. Gently press into its surface. The dough yields with a texture that is both firm and pliable, a silent promise of the potential held within. The air in the room is thick with its complex perfume, a scent that speaks of distant forests, ancient rituals, and the quiet patience of your own two hands. One part of the journey is over, the gathering, the grinding, the binding. Now, you must give this silent, fragrant soul its form. You rise, your joints moving with the familiar stiffness of age, and walk to the far corner of the workshop. Here, resting on a low table, is the tool for this final, crucial step. It is not what a person from another time might imagine. There are no gears, no motor, no gleaming steel. It is a small, humble press, crafted from a single piece of dark cherry wood. It is an old tool, given to you decades ago by your master, and its surface holds a deep, lustrous patina, polished to a soft glow not by varnish, but by a lifetime of careful handling. His hands, and then yours, have passed over this wood so many times that the grain has become a relief map of your shared craft, its contours as familiar to your touch as the lines on your own palm. You run your hand along its length, feeling the cool, solid weight of it. To a modern eye, it would look primitive, inefficient. But you know its genius lies in its simplicity. It is an extension of your own body, a way to translate the steady pressure of your arm and the unwavering focus of your mind into a single, perfect line. You take a moment to prepare it, your movements unhurried and precise. You wipe the inner chamber with a soft, clean cloth, ensuring no dust or stray particles from a previous blend will contaminate this one. You check the small brass plate at its end, the one pierced with a single, perfectly round hole. This tiny aperture will shape the destiny of every stick. You examine it in the soft light filtering through the shoji screen, making sure its edge is clean and smooth. any imperfection here. Any tiny burr or speck of hardened resin would tear the delicate strand of incense as it emerges. This is a truth you learned from your master long ago. The grandest outcomes depend entirely on the integrity of the smallest, most overlooked details. The press is not a machine that does the work for you. It is a partner in the work, demanding as much sensitivity and attention as you give to the precious ingredients themselves. Its silence asks for your focus. Its simplicity demands your skill. With the press ready, you turn back to the bowl of incense dough, using a small, flat, bladed bamboo spatula. Another tool so old its edges are soft and rounded with use. You begin to carefully load the paste into the press's chamber. This is not a simple act of filling a container. It is an art of its own. You cannot simply push the dough in. You must lay it in, piece by piece, pressing each addition down firmly to ensure there are no trapped pockets of air. You know that air is the unseen enemy of your craft. An air bubble, hidden within the dough, would become a fatal flaw in the final stick. It would create a weak point, causing the stick to snap as it dries and shrinks. Or worse, if it survived the drying, the bubble would cause the incense to burn unevenly, the line of glowing ember sputtering and dying before its time, the fragrant prayer left unfinished. Your stomach clenches slightly at the thought. The dishonor of a poorly made stick, one that fails in its purpose, is a feeling you work your entire life to avoid. So you work slowly, your focus narrowed to the tip of your spatula. You feel the dense, slightly sticky resistance of the paste as you guide it into the chamber. The scent, which had filled the room, now seems to concentrate, rising in a potent wave with each depression of the spatula. You can smell the deep, almost bitter note of the aloeswood, the spicy warmth of the clove, and the clean, bracing whisper of the pine needles you gathered from the garden. It is all in there, a whole season of scent, now being compressed and unified. It is work that requires a kind of listening with your hands. You feel for the slightest change in texture, the subtle shift in resistance that might signal a void, and you press and smooth until you are certain the chamber is filled with a single, solid, unbroken mass. In a world that will one day value speed above all else, this deliberate, meticulous slowness feels like a quiet rebellion. It is a testament to the belief that some things cannot, and should not, be rushed. The quality of the final, fragrant smoke is being determined here and now in this unseen, humble act of packing earth, dark dough into a wooden tube. Finally, the chamber is full. You fit the wooden plunger into the top of the chamber and place the entire apparatus into its sturdy frame. A wooden crank, worn smooth and dark in the center, where your hand will grip it, protrudes from the side. You slide a thin, pale plank of cedar wood onto the platform directly beneath the brass nozzle. The cedar is unfinished, its surface planed to a perfect flatness. You can smell its own subtle, clean fragrance, a scent you know will be a quiet companion to the incense as it cures over the coming weeks. Everything is ready. The potential in the bowl has been transferred to the potential in the press. You take a deep breath, letting it out slowly, calming your mind and steadying your body. Your hand closes around the wooden crank. This is the moment of creation, the transition from mass to form, from potential to existence. You begin to turn. The motion is not fast. It is agonizingly, beautifully slow. You feel the immediate resistance as the plunger begins to compress the dense dough. Your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, they all engage, not with brute force, but with a consistent, unwavering pressure. You are not just turning a handle, you are becoming part of the tool. Through the wood of the crank, you can feel everything that is happening inside the chamber. You can feel the dough begin to move, a slow, viscous flow under the immense, steady pressure. You listen with your skin, and then it happens. From the tiny brass hole, a dark tip emerges. It seems to hesitate for a moment, as if tasting the air for the first time, before it lowers itself and makes contact with the pale cedar board. It is perfect. A single dark green-brown point, the beginning of a line. You continue to turn the crank, your motion as smooth and continuous as the flow of water. The point becomes a line, a thin, perfectly formed filament of incense that lays itself down upon the cedar. The contrast is stark and beautiful, the dark, damp, fragrant line against the pale, dry, quiet wood. It is like a brushstroke of ink on fresh paper, a single, deliberate mark drawn across the emptiness. You watch, mesmerized, as the line grows longer. Millimeter by millimeter, it extends, a physical manifestation of your steady effort. You realize you are holding your breath and force yourself to exhale slowly. Your entire being is focused on the pace of that turn. If you turn too quickly, the strand will stretch, its internal structure compromised, and it will burn too fast and hot, its scent sharp and unbalanced. If you turn too slowly, or with an unsteady hand, the dough will sag under its own weight, creating a stick that is crooked and uneven. The secret, your master always said, is to find the pace of the incense itself. You have to feel its willingness to emerge and match your own rhythm to it. He called the press the heart's clock, because your turning had to be as steady and calm as the beat of your own heart during meditation. The line is now several inches long, a perfect, unbroken thread resting on the wood. You think about what this simple line represents. It is a vessel. It is a future moment. It is a measured length of time, waiting to be released through fire. Inside this solid form is the scent of a late autumn garden, the memory of rain on a tile roof, the deep quiet of ancient forests, and the painstaking labor of your hands. You are not simply making an object. You are, in a very real sense, extruding a line of time. Each stick will offer perhaps an hour of scent, an hour of peace for a monk in a distant mountain temple you will never see. And you are creating that hour now, with the slow, deliberate turning of this wooden crank. When the line reaches the desired length, you stop turning. The flow of dough ceases instantly. With your other hand, you pick up a thin bamboo blade. In one swift, clean motion, you slice through the strand, separating the finished stick from the press. The cut is precise, leaving a clean, flat end. You pause, take another centering breath, and gently reposition the cedar board. Then, your hand returns to the crank, and you begin to turn once more, laying down another perfect line alongside the first. You fall into a rhythm that is deeper than conscious thought. Turn, extrude, observe, cut. Reposition the board. Turn, extrude, observe, cut. The workshop is silent save for the faint, rhythmic creak of the wooden press and the soft whisper of the bamboo blade as it parts the dough. Your mind empties of everything but the task. The world outside, the worries of the court in the capital, the changing of the seasons, it all fades away. There is only the dark line growing steadily on the pale wood. You fill the first cedar board. Dozens of identical sticks now lie in perfect, parallel rows. Looking at them, you do not see a product ready for market. You see something else. They look like the strings of a Kōdō, waiting for a hand to release their music. They look like a line of ants, marching in silent purpose. They look, more than anything, like verses of a long, silent poem, written in a language that cannot be read, only inhaled. Each stick is a single line of that poem, and each carries the same refrain of aloeswood, resin, and spice. You set the finished board aside on a drying rack and place a fresh one under the press. The cedar boards themselves are part of the art. You chose this wood specifically for its properties. It is not just a surface to hold the joss sticks, as some might call them. The wood is a crucial part of the curing process. As the incense dries over the next several weeks in the cool, dry air of the coming winter, the porous cedar will help to draw the moisture out evenly and slowly. This prevents the sticks from cracking or warping. It is a slow conversation between the fragrant dough and the absorbent wood, a partnership that ensures the final product is flawless. You understand that nothing in your craft stands alone. Every element depends upon the others. As you begin to fill the second board, your mind drifts to the ultimate fate of these beautiful, dark lines. You are pouring all of this effort, all of this concentrated essence into these solid, tangible objects. You can touch them, see them, arrange them. They are real, solid, here. And yet, their entire purpose is to be annihilated. Their destiny is to be turned into a wisp of smoke, a fleeting fragrance that will perfume the air for a short time before vanishing completely. A person from the future, a person obsessed with permanence, with things that last, would surely see this as the height of futility. Weeks of labor for a few hours of smoke. What could be the point? Your hands do not stop their work as you contemplate this. You finish another stick and another. The movements are automatic now, freeing your mind to follow this thought to its conclusion. You remember your master, a quiet man with hands as worn as your own are now, sitting right where you are, teaching you this very lesson. He held up a freshly extruded stick, just like the ones before you now. "We do not craft objects, Kaito," he had said, his voice as soft as temple moss. "We craft moments, remember that. A stone statue will last 1,000 years, but it will be cold and silent for every one of them. This," he gestured with the incense stick, "will last but an hour. But for that hour, it will be alive. It will dance in the air. It will calm a mind, carry a prayer, unlock a memory from deep within a person's heart. Which do you think has more permanence? The unfeeling stone, or the feeling that is stirred by the smoke? The memory is as clear as if it were yesterday." He was right. Permanence is an illusion. The mighty timbers of the grandest temples eventually rot. The sharpest mountains are worn down to hills by wind and rain. Even memories fade if they are not rekindled. Your work is not about creating a thing that will endure. It is about creating the key to a moment that will. The physical stick is merely the vessel. The true art, the enduring part, is the beautiful, transient cloud of smoke and the profound peace it can bring. Your purpose is not to defy the ephemeral nature of life, but to celebrate it, to give it the most beautiful voice you possibly can. You have now filled 3 boards. The chamber of the press is nearly empty. The afternoon light is beginning to fade, turning the white paper of the shoji screens a soft, golden gray. You extrude the last few sticks, working with the same care and deliberate slowness for the very last one as you did for the very first. When the press is empty, you stop. You carefully disassemble the tool, wiping each part clean, rubbing the cherry wood with an oiled cloth until it gleams softly in the twilight. You treat it with reverence, not because it is old, but because it is a trusted partner in your work. Standing in the quiet of your workshop, you look at the racks of filled trays. Hundreds of silent, waiting lines. They are the culmination of a season's journey, a physical library of scent. And soon, they will all be gone, turned to ash and memory. You feel no sadness at this thought. Instead, a deep and abiding peace settles over you. You have poured your skill, your patience, and a piece of your own quiet spirit into each one. You have not created something that will last. You have created something that will give meaning to a fleeting moment. And in the profound, simple truth of that, you find all the permanence you will ever need. The dark, wet lines of incense you extruded lay like silent threads of captured time upon the cedar drying boards. You remember the slow, steady turning of the cherry wood crank, a feeling of quiet creation as you gave form to a fragrance that existed only as a potential in a bowl of dark paste. You thought then of the ephemeral nature of your work, how these solid lines, the result of seasons of gathering and weeks of patient labor, were destined for nothing more than smoke and memory. Now, weeks have passed. The damp days of late autumn have given way to the sharp, crystalline air of early winter. The drying boards are empty, their duty done. The incense is cured, resting in shallow cedar boxes, each stick holding its breath, waiting. The sky is the color of a pale, bruised plum as twilight settles over your garden, and you know the moment has come. It is time to listen to what you have made. You rise from the veranda and slide open the paper screen to your workshop. The air inside is cooler than you expect and carries a complex, dormant perfume. It is not the bold scent of an incense stick being burned, but the layered, latent promise of all its ingredients living together in the quiet dark. It is the smell of aged aloeswood logs in their boxes, the faint sweetness of resins in their ceramic jars, the clean aroma of the cedar shelves themselves. Your feet are silent on the smooth, dark floorboards as you cross to the far wall, where the finished incense rests. You kneel before the boxes, your movements unhurried, imbued with a reverence that has become as natural to you as breathing. This is not simply a product. It is the culmination of a conversation, a dialogue between you and the gifts of the earth. You slide the lid from one of the boxes. The sticks lie in perfect, parallel rows, their color a deep, matte brown, almost black. They look impossibly fragile. You reach out, not to grab, but to gently touch. Your fingertips brush against the surface of a single stick. It is dry, almost chalky to the touch, and unbelievably light. You feel the fine, powdery texture of its surface. This lightness is the proof of its readiness. All the moisture, the water you use to form the binding paste from the taboo, no key bark, has completely evaporated, leaving behind only the concentrated soul of the woods, resins, and spices. It is a delicate vessel now, a solid form built from a dozen different kinds of dust, held together by the faintest trace of honey and the memory of rain. You do not search for the most perfect stick, the straightest one, the one without any flaws. Instead, you let your fingers drift over the rows, feeling for something else, something indefinable, a connection, a sense of rightness. Your hand settles on one. You lift it from the box. It feels like holding a dried blade of grass, a hollow bird bone. It weighs almost nothing, yet you can feel the density of its history in your palm. You bring it closer to your face and inhale. The scent is faint, a dry, woody ghost of the fragrance it will soon release. You can pick out the deep, earthy note of the Kyara, the high, clean scent of the pine, and a dusty sweetness from the cloves. It is a shy perfume, one that must be coaxed out with fire and heat. You hold in your hand a single, concentrated moment of captured time, ready to be released. With this chosen stick held carefully between your thumb and forefinger, you return to the veranda. The cold air greets you again, a stark and cleansing presence. You feel it on your cheeks and the bare skin of your ankles below the hem of your robe. Out in the garden, the world is sinking into shades of indigo and grey. The moss on the ground seems to absorb the last of the light, appearing almost black. The smooth, grey stones of the path are outlined by shadows, and the bare branches of the maple tree are a stark, calligraphic scroll against the fading sky. In the corner of the garden, one of the stone lanterns, a tar, has been lit by Hana. You did not see her do it, but her quiet presence is felt in this small act of care. The light from within is not a floodlight meant to illuminate a modern yard. It is a soft, warm glow that escapes through the carved openings, creating a gentle pool of light on the moss below and casting beautiful, dancing shadows. It is a light designed to deepen the darkness around it, to make you appreciate the quiet mystery of the coming night. You kneel on a flat silk cushion, a zabuton, its worn texture familiar and comforting. Before you sits a small table, and on it, your tools. They are simple, but each is beautiful in its own right, worn smooth and dark with a patina of age and constant, careful use. There is a bronze bowl, your censer or key row, which you have already filled with fine, white ash. This is not just any ash, it has been sifted and cleaned over and over until it is, as fine as flour, a perfect, sterile bed for the incense. You pick up a small, feather-like tool and gently stir the ash, making it light and airy. Then you take a small brass press, an ash dose, and gently tamp the surface of the ash until it is perfectly smooth and flat. A miniature landscape of pale, grey snow. The preparation of the censer is as much a part of the ritual as the burning itself. Because a properly prepared bed of ash doesn't just hold the stick. It allows air to circulate precisely around the burning tip, ensuring a clean, even burn and preventing any other smells from interfering with the pure fragrance. An impure burn can create harsh, acrid notes, a failure of both technique and respect. Your master taught you that the vessel must be worthy of what it is to receive. Beside the censer is a small ceramic brazier, a hibachi, containing a piece of special charcoal, the tadun that you lit over an hour ago. It is now a perfect ember, glowing with a soft, steady, internal heat, covered in a delicate layer of its own grey ash. There is no smoke, no flame, just pure, contained energy. You use a pair of long, elegant bamboo tongs, their tips precise as a surgeon's fingers, to lift the glowing charcoal from the brazier. You bring it close to the incense stick. You do not touch the stick to a vulgar, sputtering flame. A flame would scorch the wood, an act of violence that would shock the scent into a harsh, bitter protest. Instead, you gently touch the very tip of the incense stick to the soft, glowing heart of the ember. You watch, holding your breath. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, the dark brown tip of the stick begins to glow in response, a tiny pinpoint of reciprocal red light. A faint, almost imperceptible sizzle escapes, the sound of ancient resins awakening from their long slumber. A tiny wisp of smoke, thicker than what will come later, appears. Sometimes a small, shy flame will flicker to life, and if it does, you do not panic. You simply lift the stick away from the heat and give a single, gentle, respectful puff of air, like blowing a kiss, to extinguish it. The goal is never flame, only a self-sustaining ember. Tonight, no flame appears. You have woken it gently. The ember on the incense tip is steady, a tiny red star in the deepening twilight. The moment of transition is complete. The solid has begun its journey into the ethereal. Your movements are slow, deliberate, as you place the bottom end of the incense stick into the center of the smooth, white ash. It sinks in effortlessly, and you press it down just enough so that it stands perfectly vertical, a single, dark line drawn between the earth of the ash and the vastness of the sky. You set your hands on your knees, your back straight, your posture relaxed but attentive. Your work is now finished. The grinding, the blending, the kneading, the extruding, the drying. All of it has led to this single, standing stick. Now, you must simply be present. You must listen. The first hint of fragrance reaches you. It does not arrive as a cloud, but as a single, impossibly thin thread of scent in the still, cold air. The first thing you perceive is the clean, sharp whisper of the pine needles you gathered from the garden. It is the top note, the most volatile of the oils you blended into the paste. Because it is the lightest. It is the first to be released by the heat, an opening statement. It is bright, invigorating, and clear. It smells of the mountain temple for which this blend is destined, of crisp winter air and the deep, resilient life of the forest. It is a scent that clears your mind, that prepares you for what is to come. It is the scent of anticipation. You watch the smoke. It is not the thick, billowing smoke of a bonfire. It is a single, pale blue, grey thread rising in a nearly perfect vertical line. The cold, still air of the veranda is the perfect vessel for this experience. A breeze would shatter the scent, tearing its story into incoherent fragments. But here, in the stillness, the smoke climbs, unwavering, before it begins to gently diffuse at head height, spreading its message softly throughout the space. As the ember burns a little deeper into the stick, the heart of the fragrance begins to unfold. The sharp note of the pine softens, making way for something warmer, richer, more complex. The spiciness of the clove emerges, not a harsh Christmas scent as a modern mind might think of it, but a gentle, penetrating warmth, like an ancient memory of the sun. Alongside it comes the deep, sacred sweetness of the frankincense and the slightly bitter, earthy aroma of myrrh. These are the resins, their molecules heavier, requiring a little more time and heat to be released. You close your eyes, and you can almost feel the memory of that rainy afternoon in your workshop, the sticky texture of the paste on your fingers, the soothing patter of raindrops on the roof. This is the scent of contemplation, of history, of quiet devotion. It does not shout, it humors, a low, resonant chant that fills the space around you. From the edge of the veranda, you are aware of a silent presence. Hana has appeared, standing just beyond the pool of light from the workshop. She does not look at you, but at the single, rising thread of smoke. Her stillness matches your own. She, who tends the silent life of the garden, understands this language of patience, of quiet unfolding. Her presence does not intrude, it completes the circle. The creator, the witness, and the creation, all held together in a single, fragile moment. Finally, as the ember eats its way down the length of the stick, the soul of the blend reveals itself. It is the Kyara, the finest grade of aloeswood, the heart of your creation. This is the base note, the deepest and most enduring fragrance. It is not a scent you can easily describe with simple words. It is darker than the others, more profound. It smells of deep, damp earth and ancient forests. It holds a subtle sweetness, like a forgotten secret, and a quiet bitterness, like a noble sorrow. It is the scent of absolute calm. It is the fragrance of 1,000 years of silence in a temple hall. Because it is the densest and most complex of the resins, formed over centuries by the slow wounding and healing of a tree. Its fragrance is the most grounding, the anchor that holds all the other, more fleeting scents together. It will be the last scent to fade from the air when the stick has long since turned to ash. You sit, breathing in, breathing out. You are not thinking about the monks in the distant temple, or whether they will appreciate your work. You are not thinking about the value of the Kyara, which is greater than gold. You are not thinking about your legacy, or what will remain of you after you are gone. All of those concerns have dissolved, turned to smoke. Your entire being is focused on this experience. The Japanese call it Kōdō, the Way of Incense. But the verb they use is not to smell, but to listen. And so you listen. You listen to the story the smoke is telling you. A story of fallen leaves in an autumn garden, of sticky resins from a distant desert, of a steady hand on a grinding stone, of the enduring spirit of a pine tree in winter. The stick burns lower and lower, the glowing red tip a slow, descending star. The complex symphony of scents fills the small space of the veranda, a presence as real and tangible as the cold air on your skin. It hangs, a perfect, invisible cloud of peace, and then, as the ember reaches the ash, it winks out. The glowing tip vanishes. The thread of smoke ceases. It is over. A final, fine wisp escapes, and then there is only the tall, thin sliver of grey ash standing where the stick once was. The fragrance lingers, a beautiful ghost in the air, but you know it is already beginning to dissipate, to drift out into the garden and dissolve into the vast, cold darkness of the winter night. You did not create a monument of stone. You did not write words that will be read for centuries. You created this, a single perfect, fleeting moment of profound beauty. You look at the fragile pillar of ash, so delicate that the slightest breath will turn it to dust. You look out into the quiet garden, at the soft glow of the lantern. You feel the deep silence settle back into place, now richer for the memory of the scent. And in the beautiful, transient perfection of this moment, in its utter lack of permanence, you have found everything you have ever sought.